Good afternoon, Success Masterminders, and welcome. Welcome to Legacy, all that and teaches about the business of life. I am Kevin Hall, and today I am joined by two guest stars. Steve here.
Hi guys.
And Gavin Scott.
How are we doing, guys?
Now, this is the session that we had planned for you at the S&M meeting, due to be delivered this week, and is therefore, it's been adapted for an online delivery. It won't be perfect, but we have worked well together to bring you something that is not only extremely helpful, informative, but also fun and engaging too, with your input critically important, but we'll come back to that later. Also want to make you aware that if you do experience any sound issues, just everyone in the UK at the moment is doing things like this, using different platforms, what have you, and bandwidth, etc., etc. So just bear with us if you do experience any breaks in sound. Now, Legacy is the title of a book. It's about leadership and culture, and right now more than ever, this is critical because there is a lot of uncertainty, a lot of fear, a lot of unknowns, and consequently a lot of questions for you and for the people that you lead. And you can't answer many questions tactically because you probably don't know yourself, but you can answer them strategically. And that is what we're going to share with you today. I was first introduced to this book and one of the principles within it by Gavin Scott during one of our coaching conversations. What he shared has changed my behavior and the results in one specific area of my life. So as we were having a conversation, Gavin brought up this thing called redhead, bluehead, which I've never heard of before. And we were talking about being a redhead, and being a redhead is when you're in a bad state. You could be, we've heard of red mist, but you could be angry, you could be annoyed, you could be unresourceful, your emotions could be out of control. And then the blue head would be the opposite of those things. So as Gavin's explaining this to me, I immediately went into my head as I was processing what he was telling me. Now, those of you that know me might see me as someone who's quite cool and calm and collected, etc. in their persona, how they behave, etc., etc. But I'm embarrassed to say that I'm not like that all the time on the golf course. Don't get me wrong, I'm not bad, but I do behave in ways on a golf course that where I do get angry, I do get frustrated, and it's not a behavior that I'm at all proud of. So what might happen is I might play a shot that's capable of, but I'm also not professional, so I'm going to make mistakes. The ball might bounce in awkward ways, and it might go underneath a tree or in a very difficult place in the bunker, or I might miss a putt that I would consider very makeable or easy. And what would happen is I would get really frustrated, angry at myself, at no one else, just at myself, because of what had just happened. And the worst thing about that was taking that anger forwards into the next golf shot or the next golf hole, and consequently ruining the next few shots or the next few holes because of something that happened in the past. And I didn't want to do that anymore. So as Gavin's explaining to me about the blue head, red head, I'm in my head looking at myself on the golf course, and I can see myself standing about 20 meters in front of me, and I'm wearing my normal golf attire, so it's like black trousers and a reddish black jumper, and I've got my back to me, and I'm looking at, and I can see this red glow emanating from my head. So I'm asking myself, well, how am I behaving like that? And it's as I've already described to you. And so then I brought up another version of me standing next to myself, and this time it's emanating the blue color from my head. And I asked myself, well, what am I doing when I'm a blue head? And I was being right. I'm being calm. I'm being in the moment. I'm in control of my emotions. I'm focused on what I'm going to do next. I'm focused on the present, not past or future, but focused on the present. And I'm in a resourceful state. So as I brought up these two pictures, these two images in my mind, and then put next to them what the different traits were, I then asked myself a simple question, which was, well, which do you choose to be on the golf course? Obviously, I choose to be a bluehead. I was like, okay, so next time you're on the golf course, repeating the behavior you've done 7 times before, what are you going to do differently? So I just therefore imagine myself on the course, and then what would normally happen? So then I stopped the movie that was running in my head at that point, and then I changed and went to bluehead and go, okay, so what does that mean? What does that look like? And I had it all figured out in this, and then changed the imagery in my mind, if you like. And so then, okay, so then it's a case of, well, let's put this into practice on the golf course. So the next time I went on a golf course, the next time that I had that experience, rather than going into redhead, I went into bluehead. I did tell a couple of people about this beforehand, which helped with the self-coaching. But the results have been quite dramatic. So they say in golf you're supposed to hit your handicap 3 times a season. I'm not sure if that's entirely true or not. But I went in 12 occasions. I'd hit my handicap 9 times, and I've now done it 10 in 18, which is a phenomenal return. That's like really, really excellent to be able to play to golf at your best standard that many times. So even though I knew at the time that I wasn't behaving how I wanted to, and the results were repeating themselves when I was being a redhead, even though I didn't want to be that way anymore, I didn't know what to do instead. I didn't have a strategy that worked. And so now I do. So if you could just move the slide on for us, Gav. So who are the All Blacks? The All Blacks and the New Zealand are the New Zealand national rugby team. The book Legacy by James Kerr is about leadership and culture. From a population of just 4,822,000, a country that has more sheep than people, James Kerr, having spent months with the team, explains how it's possible that the All Blacks are the most successful sports team in any code ever. In the professional era, they have an extraordinary win rate of over 86%. How do the All Blacks do it? What's the secret to their success? Now, it's not possible to win every match, every game, every battle, and every World Cup final. And it is not possible to stay the same over many years. If you're not growing, you're dying. So what do the All Blacks do to stay at the pinnacle of not just rugby, but of international team sport when change is constant? The All Blacks have developed an extremely strong culture and leadership, and this is guided by their 15 principles. Now, the haka. Before each match against the All Blacks, the opposition line up to face the haka. This presents itself as a fearsome war dance. This ritual is a challenge thrown down by one group of warriors to another. Often by the time the haka reaches its crescendo, the opposition have already lost. The opposition team realise that they are not facing a group of 15 individual players, but instead a culture, an identity, an ethos, a belief system, and a collective passion and purpose beyond anything that they have faced before. So for rugby, like business, like much of life, is played primarily in the mind. Let's take a look at haka now. It's quite a sight, isn't it? And it's often brings the hairs on your skin up on the back of your neck and your arms. So this is how we're going to run the session today. The book is broken into like 15 chapters, 15 principles, and what we've decided to do is we've taken 3 of these each to share with you, and then of course cover legacy at the end. So as you can look through, they are the 15 chapters. The ones with the asterisk next to them are the ones that we're going to cover today. So for you to become aware of all 15 principles, you'll have to read the book Legacy. But in this particular training session, we're going to introduce you to 10 of the 15 principles. So I'd just like to hand over to Steve.
Thanks, Kev, and welcome all to the webinar. Can I just all say that, given that I met Kevin on a golf course, I can only say that he must have been introduced to the redhead, bluehead after I played with him, and because I think, but since then, I'm only joking, Kev. I'm only joking. He's got a lot better. He's got a lot better. So thanks for that, Gav. As Kevin mentioned earlier, I think it's in this current situation, it's so important that we demonstrate leadership, and I think it's really important as well that when we come through the other side, we take great care and really take an interest in our people and how we run our organisations. You know, if you think about where we find ourselves right now, and why are things kind of going down the way, and the reason for that is that people aren't at work. So people aren't doing the jobs that they should do. So I think this more than ever just highlights how important people are to your business. And yet it's one of those factors that we don't look at in too much detail. And I think coming out of this, we need to do that a lot better right the way across the country in all businesses. So I'm going to be picking up 3 chapters today. I'm going to pick up, the first one will be character, the second one is wanua, and the third one is language. My apologies for the pronunciation, they may not be correct. So let me start with character. So all 3 of these chapters I'm going to go through, for me, are linked, but it starts with character. That's both yours and the people who are within your organisation. On the slide, you'll see a quote from a lawyer who works with the All Blacks. He's worked with the South African cricket team, and he's also an international consultant. His name is Owen Eastwood, and he says performance equals capability plus behaviour. So it's not just about knowing what you're doing; it's about how you show up at work and how you go out doing things. And I think that's you as an individual and how you show up at school, at work. So if you don't have a team, it's how you show up every day, okay? Which is just as important if you don't have people as if you do have people. If you do have people, then as a leader, it's about balancing your humility with your leadership skills. So for me, it's less of me, the boss, you, the worker, more of we work as one team. How can I support you? And how can I engage with you better? This all starts with values, and you know, anybody who's been within the program and been on SPDs, we talk about values very succinctly, and we spend some time talking those through. And as I've said many times, I think in large corporate organizations, they like to try and bring a value out, but the reality is that in smaller organizations, it's the lifeblood, because you've got to get that right, or else you can make many mistakes moving forwards. And it says on the slide, our values decide our character, and our character decides our value within the organization. So if you're looking to employ somebody, you really need to have the person with the right character, because that will deliver the right value to your organization. And at the top, under character, before, on the previous slide, it said sweep the sheds. In this chapter, they talk about how the All Blacks sweep their own changing rooms. They don't just throw down the bits of tape and the bits of bandage that they may have been wearing and leave it for somebody else to do. After the team debrief, it's incumbent on 3 or 4 or 5 members of the squads, and they take it in turns to pick up the brush and do it themselves. So while the rest of the country is watching replays and there are school kids leaping around their bedrooms onto their bed trying to score a try with a ball in their hand and reliving the glory, the All Blacks themselves are tidying up, sweeping the sheds, doing it properly. No one has to help them, because no one else looks after the All Blacks, and the All Blacks look after themselves. It's about not expecting somebody else to do your job for you, and teaches you not to expect things to be handed to you. Again, really pertinent right now. And I saw a webcast from Dan Sullivan the other day talking about entrepreneurs face challenges all the time, because that's what we do. We've made a decision to get out of whatever business we were in and go it alone on our own. So we meet challenges all the time. So right now is no different. But just imagine how powerful it would be if all of your employees showed that character. If you got together and showed, this isn't going to happen for me, we have to work together as a team to make this happen. All the great sports coaches, and I you know, I study a lot of sport and enjoy sport, and I coach rugby myself. So this was a really good book for me to read. All the great coaches of the past put humility at the core of their teaching. The All Blacks place a similar emphasis on their fundamental and foundational values, going so far as to select on character over talent. The players are taught never to get too big to do the small things that need to be done. Exceptional results demand exceptional circumstances. These conditions help them to shape the culture and therefore the character of the team. And clearly, as Kevin spoke about, the results they've got, it's come to the fore as well. I think in this time, we have to be really conscious that as an individual we don't have all the answers, and that what we need to do is we need to ask those people around us, whether they're within your organization or outside, to run these things past one another. If you've got an idea, it can be a good one. Let's try and bring it out. Some of those ideas you may have had on the back burner, why don't you bring those out, but discuss it with somebody and see where that might go. And moving on to chapter 6, this for me enhances that first piece about character. It's entitled Wanu, and in Maori this means extended family, your mates, your team, your organization. In this chapter they talk about Wanu being symbolized as a spearhead, and its image is derived from the flight formation of a bird called kawau. Now, I'm sorry about the pronunciation; it cannot be the best, I'm sure, but you'll have to pick up the book to read it and understand it. A spearhead has 3 tips, but to work properly, all the force must be moving in one direction. And so it is with Wanu. For Wanu to function, you have to move in one direction. Everyone must move towards the same point. You're free to choose the course. Obviously, you have to set your own direction. You have to set your own vision and your own goals. But to make it most effective, you've all got to be working together. Again, Owen Eastwood says that if the first steps in developing a high-performance culture are 1, select on character, 2, understand your strategy for change, 3, co-write a purpose, 4, devolve leadership, and 5, encourage a learning environment. The 6th, and arguably the most important step, is to begin to turn the standards into action. The best way of doing this is through peer-to-peer enforcement. So this is about, not just you as a leader sort of standing there and banging the desk. And they talk a lot about this in this particular chapter, about people and members of the team standing up and taking on the responsibility of the leadership and ensuring that some of the less experienced or the newer members of the squad understand what this culture is all about and how they all work together and how you look after one another. So it's about respect as a value is vague, but has impact when players do take it upon themselves to decide that this means that there's no phones in meetings or there's no talking over each other, etc. Values alone just risk becoming wallpaper and meaningless, but defining them and enforcing them through actions needs to come from the bottom up. Wanu is the essence of team working hard for each other in harmony, and not for individual ego. So it's not about somebody at the top trying to do the best and grabbing all the headlines. It's about everyone in the organisation working together. And in the All Blacks, for there personally and on this slide, it says no dickheads. Now, you cannot have somebody in your organisation who is going to make this fall apart because of some of their actions and trying to keep with their ego only. The All Blacks have really high standards, and they're fundamental and enforced by the players themselves who are trusted to do the task. Success can be traced back to the connections between the members of the team as a collective, and it's their character that really brings them through. And that connection and collaboration and collective ownership is nurturing a safe environment of trust, respect, and family. Now, that's in a team environment. Can you imagine, again, if your team turned up and felt that about your business, how that would translate? The last chapter is language, and really it just expands on Owen Eastwood's earlier point regarding taking your values and creating a language around it. Instead of just a singular word, it's how you bring that to life. There are many organizations around the world that have a number of values, but they try and bring them to life through words. And in fact, the All Blacks, there was a book written called The Black Book, believe it or not, by ex-All Blacks who had seen that the standards and the results were slipping. And therefore they wrote this book, and it was for all black guys only, and it was kind of mantras, mottos, call it what you will, but it's, included things like no one is bigger than the team, leave the jersey in a better place, leave it all out on the field, it's an honor, not a job, work harder than an ex-All Black. All of these things, you could put a value before each one of those, but those words bring it to life. And people like Apple, for instance, will use a value. One of their ones is empathy. But what it means is that they talk about is that we will truly understand the customer's needs better than any other company. They talk about focus. In order to do a good job of those things that we decide to do, we must eliminate all of the unimportant opportunities. Really important point that. So we talk a lot about focus and how do we keep focused in business. Well, it's a lot about what you don't do, more about than what you actually do. So, are there all these little things that steal your time away that you can stop doing, and which enables you to start doing other things? They've got another value called impute, and impute, people do judge a book by its cover. We may have the best products, the highest quality, the best useful software. However, if we present them in a slipshod manner, they will be perceived as slipshod. If we present them in a creative, professional manner, we will impute the desired properties. Now, I know that anyone who's watched Simon Simniak's Golden Circles video talks about Apple in this way, talks about the way that they make cool stuff that works really well. And that essentially is what Apple is about, but by living its values through those words that they bring in. So the point here is to invent your own language. Strong cultures need a system of meaning, and you need that needs to be understood by everyone. A language and a vocabulary. Words and mottos. That binds everything together. Okay, that brings everything to the fore. All right. So I just wanted, there's one slide here that I just wanted to run through, which kind of encapsulates all of these, which is the next slide. And this was when I was doing my level 2 rugby training course with the RFU last year. What we did, one of the sessions was about character in a way, and it was about how the family, the ethos, what we were trying to do through rugby. So one of the leaders just stood up and she's asked us a question. She said, "Give me words to describe the people that are the easiest to coach or are a pleasure to coach." So on the left-hand side, we started saying things like, positive, listened, are engaged, are confident. Treads is the values of the RFU: teamwork, respect, enjoyment, discipline, and sportsmanship. Responsive, punctual. We've said dressed there. That means in their kit, obviously. Not afraid to fail. Leaders. Accountable, curious, ask questions, not critical of others, open to learning, smiles, is humble, is helpful. She then asked us, so give me those things that make a person difficult to coach. So overconfidence, aggressive, disruptive, distractions, unresponsive, lack of confidence, know-it-all. The parents sometimes pushing them into, don't want to be there, disorganized, their home life might not be great, always win focused, which was interesting, false expectations and think they're sort of greater than they are. And then on the right hand side, there are just a couple there, which was fitness and difference of ability. And she'd done this, quite well by drawing this line down the board, because she knew on the left hand side was actually where all of our words were going to go into. And she said, so the ones on the left are all social and personal. So this is about the person as an individual and how they get on with people. And we've said all of the good things and all of the bad things, if you like, are all in that area there. Yet on the right hand side were all the technical and tactical issues. And she just posed one question. She said, up until this point, she said, where have all of your sessions been focused? And all of our sessions were on technical and tactical. There are very, very few of them, if any, on the character of an individual and bringing that to the fore and working on that and working on the team and making those people and the better people become leaders and do some of that social engineering amongst their peer-to-peer learning. Really, really important, massive lesson for us, massive lesson for me, hit me like a steam train. Thought it was a brilliant session. So I've got kind of 3 questions for you guys to take away that I just want you to work on. And as I say, if we'd been in the environment, you'd be masterminding this together. But if you can see these, really I'm looking at what are your values. If you don't have them defined, what could they be? What language, mottos and mantras do you use in your company? Or what language could you use? What mottos could you make up? And 3, how do or would you test for character, capability, equals attitude plus behavior. Sorry, character equals attitude plus behavior in a new recruit to your team. So if you were looking to bring someone new in, what would they need to look like? And what would you need to think about? So with that, I'll pass you on to Gavin, and I'll be back on a bit later on.
Thanks for that, Steve and Kev. And guys, thank you for this opportunity to share some of this great content from this great book, Legacy. I would certainly encourage all of you to get yourself a copy and during a bit of spare time that you might have over the course of the next few weeks and months, then definitely get stuck in and read a few chapters of it. Just thinking about some of the information that Steve shared then, some of you might be at home schooling your children, and I said to the wife, I said, look, wouldn't it be great to inject some principles when it comes to how we school the kids? And I shared some of the 15 principles, and she said, you know what, love, that'll be great, but please can you avoid no dickhead for our 9, 8 and 12-year-olds? So I had to reframe from that one. Certainly I've used a lot of this stuff with my kids over the last few months, and thinking about invent your own language. My son, he plays central midfield for the local team. And I said, Sam, you know what? Your job in central midfield is to have a great touch, and you've got to have top quality passes. So I said, there are 2 things I want you to focus on. So GT stands for great touch, and TQP stands for top quality pass. So I said, when you're on that field of play, just think to yourself, top quality pass and GT for great touch. That's what he did. And I didn't tell my wife that we were doing this. At the end of this game, when he was thinking TQP and GT, came off the pitch, and my wife came across to the coaching side and said, Sam, today you just had a great touch. And you know what? Some of the passes that you made, they were really great. And I thought, me and Sam looked at each other, nodding smile, thinking, you know what? That language really does work. And so, I've tested this stuff out, and so has Kev, and it does make a massive difference. So let me share the few things I'm going to focus on in this next little stint. So the first one, when it comes to principle 2, adapt. This is about going for the gap. When you're on top of your game, you've got to change your game. And I think it's fair to say that in the current climate, this is something that over the course of the coming weeks and months, we've all got to be experts at. We have absolutely got to be able to adapt with the current climate. It's a crazy situation out there, and if we don't adapt, then we're going to get left behind. So, I mean, Dan talks a lot about how we can start thinking differently. And if we do start thinking differently and having that solution-focused mindset, then we can definitely survive and thrive. I believe that we can all do that over the coming weeks and months. We've got to think about some of the small changes that we can make, the different avenues that we can go down, the different options that we all have. I mean, I'm sat here, my whole business is around being face-to-face with large groups of people. So, if I don't adapt, then there's going to be some problems. And so it's now time to change and start thinking differently. And that's something we've got to consider ourselves. And remember, you guys are not alone. We've got a whole SMM network that we can bounce ideas off, and I can see that lots of people are doing that already on Dan's Facebook group, which is great to see. So remember, when it comes to adapting in the changing landscape, we're definitely stronger together. So let's make sure that we use each other's skills, knowledge, and ideas to push things forward. Okay, so key thing here, it says organizational decline is inevitable unless leaders prepare for change, even when standing at the pinnacle of success. I mean, if I look back over the last 12 months, some of us have been massively successful. I admire the likes of Alexis, Rob Stone, Stephen Becky, Leighton, and there's many, many more of us who have absolutely been smashing it out of the park. But today, we've definitely got to think about making some drastic changes because, change is absolutely ahead. And there's often a real negative stigma when it comes to change. People look at change and think, what am I going to lose? What's going to be taken away? But, change can be a good thing. And it is a little bit scary at the moment, but we've got to think about, okay, what can we do in this situation that's going to help move my business forward? And I sit here in Doncaster, I look on my wall, and I've got a little picture framed, and it's about change, and it simply says, some people want it to happen, some people wish it would happen, and others, they make it happen. And so for us, we've got to think about how we can make this stuff happen. And it's definitely within our gift to consider some of the key things that we can focus on over the coming weeks and months. It's definitely a new chapter for our business. It's definitely a new chapter in the world today. And I think a lot of people will find it quite easily to use this whole situation as a bit of an excuse. They might blame the government, they might blame other people. Some people might just even stick their heads in the sand and just wait and hope that things are going to turn out right. But we've got to make some changes ourselves and adapt. And Kev talked a lot about the need to be accountable. And so, you know what? Today we've got to think about putting on our big boy pants, our big boy knickers. We've got to put the chest out, and we've got to think about how can we make this happen. Now, some people, they look at the slide, and I'm working with groups, and I'm sure a few of you have seen this before, but I asked the question, I said, guys, what do you see? And I say, put your hands up, who sees opportunity is nowhere? And pretty much half of the group, their hands up, say, yes, Gav, I see opportunity is nowhere. And I say, who sees opportunity is now here? And the other half say, yeah, I see opportunity is now here. And we've got to think about the lens within which we see the world. A lot of neckheads and mood hoovers and energy sappers around us are sitting there and thinking, yeah, man, opportunity is nowhere. But the fact is, we've got a little bit of space at the moment. We've got some space to think, reflect, look back at what's happened. And when you create that space, and start thinking a little bit differently, then all of us should be able to see that, you know what, opportunity is absolutely now here. Yeah, it definitely is. I'm already seeing some of the work that our other SMM members are doing, and there's some key successes already, which is great to see. So opportunity is definitely now here. So let's have a look at a few questions then for you to focus on when it comes to how you can adapt. So what is it, you know, what can you do to adapt to the current landscape? What are some of the things that you can do differently? What are some of the new ventures that you can move into? What are some of the new skills that you can focus on? Yeah. What changes can you make to stay in the game? Yeah. What are some of the key things that you can do? You know, who can you make a phone call to and have a conversation with and just, you know, tap into their brain when it comes to some of the stuff that they're doing? What are some of the new avenues that you can think about maybe exploring? Yeah, there's lots of things out there that we can look at if we choose to see that opportunity is now here. I know it's very difficult at the moment, and yeah, it's not going to be easy. And certainly, cooped up in your house, you know, it is quite easy to slip into a state of crikey, what the hell are we going to do? But you know what? Create that space, have that blue head, and you can absolutely start thinking about some new approaches to take. So I move on to principle 3, which is all about purpose. You know, play with purpose and ask why. So, you know, what is your why? Why do you do the stuff that you do? Yeah? Yeah, some of the things that we do, it helps to pay the bills, absolutely. But you know what? There's always a higher purpose. There's always an underlying reason as to what it is that drives us to do some of the things that we do. I mean, none of us would have our own business if this wasn't the case. So my question to you is, you know, are you on purpose in terms of the things that you do? Are you absolutely doing what you love, what you're passionate about, where your strengths lie? I know back in 2009 when I was working for O2, I was working there for 12 years, and one day I sat there and I thought to myself, you know what? I'm working really hard here, making a lot of money for a large organization, but it's just something that's there's some little nagging voice in my head saying, Gav, you know what? You're not quite doing what you want to do. And I always wanted to set up my own business. And I thought, you know what, now's the time to change. You know, I was pretty successful as a management development consultant. The money was good, but there was definitely something missing. And I always wanted to set up my own business, like I say. And I wanted to use my skills to help people to have great conversations with their customers. So that leap of faith, and the rest, as they say, is history. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's still loads more that I can do. The fact is, I now feel as though I'm on purpose. I mean, it's a fact, you know, money is a motivator. Money is absolutely a motivator, but it's not the only thing that drives people to do what they do. Some of you may have read Dan Pink's book called Drive, and he talked about the 3 things that motivate people: purpose, autonomy, and mastery. And in this little session here, let's focus on this business of purpose. What does it mean exactly? Someone who is clearly on purpose would respond very differently to the question, what is it that you do? If I say to people, what is it that you do? Well, they might say, well, you know, I work in a supermarket, or I've got my own social media business, or whatever that might be. Well, people who are absolutely on purpose, they respond a little bit differently. But let's have a look at someone who is very purpose driven when it comes to the role that they do. Let's say to a dentist, what is it that you do? Yeah, a purpose driven dentist might say something like, well, I provide people with a beautiful smile. That's someone who's on purpose. What about a PT instructor? Well, they might say, I help people to have more confidence. They might say, I help provide people with a great body. Or they might say, I help keep the nation fit. I mean, if I think about some of the work that I see Joe Wicks doing at the moment, he's had over, I think it's over 1 million views. I think on his first day, my kids were doing his program. He had 808,000 views. And, you know, he said that, you know, what his purpose was to be a PE teacher and help kids to get fit and healthy. Well, Monday morning, he had 808,000 people watching him, and he was definitely helping the nation to get fit. But let's think about some of our mastermind members. You know, I've just jotted down a few thoughts as to what some of your purpose-driven motives might be. So let's think about Alistair. What does he do? Well, he provides people with great-looking garage space. Yeah. What about Jack? Well, Jack facilitates beautiful wedding days. Rob Stone, he provides people with spacious, neat, and tidy loft space. Yeah, so let's think about what it is in terms of our purpose. Yes, we make a bit of money, but you know what? There's always a higher reason. Let me share with you a quick story. I was born and bred in pubs, and I lived in a pub until I was 17 years old. And my father couldn't afford the rent one year, and we got kicked out of the pub. I was gutted. I was just about to turn 18 years. I could drink free beer from his pub, but yeah, we got kicked out. And my dad lost his job, had a lot of debts to pay, and he became a sandwich maker. He went round businesses and he walked into there shouting, "Sandwiches!" You know, he sold sandwiches and he was really focused on paying off his debts. And one weekend we had a family gathering and we were all sat in the living room watching the lottery. This was back in, what, 1994, 1995. We were sitting there watching the lottery. Like you used to do when it first came out, and you'd watch the lottery and then say, right, come on, let's go out for a few beers. But that evening was a little bit different. We were sitting there, my dad was on his armchair with his newspaper out on his lap with his 2 lucky dips. And we watched the lottery, and I says, right then, come on, let's go. And my dad turned around and his face was green. I said, what's up, Dad? He says, I've got them, Gav. I said, shut up, don't be stupid. He says, no, I have. I says, give me the ticket. Give me the ticket. I looked at the ticket. I looked at the screen. I thought, you've only got 2, Dad. In fact, you've got 3. Hold on, mate. You've got 4. Bloody hell, Dad. You've got 5. Holy shit. You've got 5 balls and a bonus ball. We couldn't believe it. We went to the bull. We said to the guy behind the counter, do me a favor, mate. Put on CFAX. You can tell how long ago this was. Can you put on CFAX for us? Let's see how much someone would have won for 4 balls. You know, we have to keep it quiet. Anyway, you put the screen on, and 13 people had got 5 balls and the bonus ball, and each of them won £196,000. We had the best night ever. We had a great time that night. You wouldn't believe it. My dad went to Camelot with my mum. They picked up their money. He paid for a few bits and bobs, give each of his kids £3,000. He paid off all his debts. And I thought, you know what? Life's going to be a lot different now. I went back to university in Leeds, and I came home after a couple of months. And I was very surprised to see that my dad wasn't in a good place. I said, what's wrong, Dad? He says, well, you know, I don't know what to do. I said, what do you mean? You won the frigging lottery. He says, well, you know, what do I do now? He says, I just keep thinking about, you know, sad thoughts about dying and stuff. I was like, holy crap, Dad, come on, sort yourself out. He says, you know, what is it you want to do? What is it you like doing? He says, well, I like helping people. I said, well, do more of that then. Do more of that. Anyway, to cut a long story short, he joined the local council. He used to walk around the village collecting litter with people, gathering people together. And just last year, he's the mayor of a place called St Asaph in North Wales. And he's absolutely on purpose. In fact, on Friday this week, we were due to go to the mayor's ball, but just the current situation, unfortunately, it's been cancelled. But the key thing is, you know, we've got to have that purpose, that underlying purpose when it comes to what we do. Okay, so there's a quick slide there. I got a bit tuned into my story, and so got a little bit lost in my slides. I'm going to drive this at the same time, making it an impactful session for you. So you guys can read the information that's on the screen there. But yeah, purpose is key. So let me share with you a few questions. I've done that. So what's the purpose of your business? You know, what is it that you do, right? You know, the higher purpose. Yeah. How can you make sure you connect your people with that purpose? You want to make sure that everyone's absolutely going in the same direction. You know, I talk to companies that I work for, and I say, you know what, there needs to be that northern star. You know, which direction are you traveling in, and let's make sure that everyone is pointing in the same direction. Steve talked about the spearhead, and the same rules apply here. What else drives you and your people other than money? There are definitely other things that drive people other than money. You got to tap into what those things are, and you know, really focus your attention on helping to make sure that your people are not only connected with your purpose, but you can connect with the purpose of the individual as well. Okay, so my final principle is principle number 8. Preparation, train to win, practice under pressure. I think back to 2003, the World Cup, and I came across an approach called teacup, thinking clearly under pressure. And this was something that the England rugby team used to use, and I'm sure Steve's familiar with that as well. But when Johnny Wilkinson was about to kick that drop goal, in his head, he was absolutely thinking teacup, thinking clearly under pressure. And I think all of us right now are under pressure. And if we start to get into the state of having a red head, then the shit will hit the fan. We've got to think about how we can take this logical, calm and blue head approach, and just try and keep calm when everything around us seems to be going to rat shit. So, we're definitely under pressure right now. There's a few things that we can do. We all know the benefits of training and education. We wouldn't be a member of Dan's mastermind group if we didn't. What we've got to think about, okay, so what are some of the new skills? What are some of the new skills that I can adopt over the coming weeks and months? Prior to the situation happening, some of you would have thought, you know what, I'm going to learn that new skill, or it sort of peters out, or you don't have the pig-headed discipline and determination to stick with it. And so now is a great opportunity to think about, okay, what are some of the little things that I can do to develop some skills in a new space? I mean, being completely candid with you, I've been introduced to GoToWebinar 2 days ago. And as I speak to you right now, I'm frigging leading this whole slideshow with my bum clenching my seat as I sit here thinking, come on, Gavin, let's make sure we drive this. But the key thing is that I've been able to pick up a new skill, and I'm thinking, right, yeah, GoToWebinar, that might be a place that I can move into, and it's definitely a space that I'll look at in the future. So what does this say here? Let me just quickly have a look at that, and you can read through it. In business, training is often seen as a soft option and is limited to the occasional away day. However, effective training is intense, regular, repetitious. World-class results, it should be central to the culture. We know from the stuff that we do with Dan, that yes, we have a great couple of days at SMM. What's massively important on those sessions is that we implement some of the key learnings that he shared. If we don't implement it, it's quickly forgotten. So, I know that we're all serious about training, and, now's the time to, get even more serious about some of the other things that we can do. We just share with you a quick story about the need to practice and the need to really focus on doing new things. I'm going to finish up with this story. Back in 1915 in New South Wales, Australia, there was a small boy and he was playing cricket alone in his back garden. The sound of the ball echoes around the neighbourhood. Pretty much like my son at the moment is whacking the ball against the back wall, and I can hear it echoing around the neighbourhood here in Doncaster. The bat that this guy used was a stump, and the ball that he used was a golf ball. He's hitting this ball against this curved, corrugated wall, and each time the ball rebounds off in a different direction. Sometimes when the ball comes back, he cuts it. Sometimes he drives it. Sometimes he blocks it. But every time he hits the ball. Every time. He does it every morning, every afternoon, every evening for a decade. In his first ever game, aged 12 years old, he scores 115 not out. I mean, that's massive. 115 runs not out at 12 years old. In the return match, the captain retires him on 72. So because he was playing that well, he pulled him off after scoring 72. In the third match, the team that is due to play refused to play if he's in the squad. Can you believe that? In his first season of club cricket, he scores 995 runs off just 9 innings. In 1927, he plays his first-class match. And the following year, he plays for his country. 20 years later, he retires with an average test score of 99.94. He was dismissed 1 run short of an extraordinary career average of 100. His name, well, some of you might know him. It's Donald Bradman. Yeah, probably one of the finest sportsmen of any generation. So the key thing here for us guys is to consider, whilst we've got this time, whilst we've got this space, what are some of the skills that I've got to develop? What are some of the skills that by the end of 2020, I want to be good at? What are some of the courses that you can sign up for in the next 3 months? Yeah. What are some of the self-learning that you can do like I've done with GoToWebinar? What measures can you implement, that will show any return on investment for these training events that you do attend? How can you measure? Kev talks a lot about making sure that we measure the success of the stuff that we do. So, how can you measure the success of some of the courses that you enroll on? So hopefully you enjoyed that little piece there. I will now hand back over and we'll take it from there.
Thank you, Gav. Amazing, isn't it, when we put this together before all this happened, before the world changed, how apt those particular principles are to you in your situation as well. It's quite incredible. So the first of my 3 principles is principle number 4, responsibility. And leaders create leaders. This principle is all about sharing the responsibility of leadership amongst the team, to empower those that are on the ground, so to speak, doing the work, to create leadership groups that feel that they own their actions, thoughts, beliefs, and results, that no one wants to pour towards the greater good. This is about creating a leadership framework from the top that allows those in the team to step up. This is especially relevant when in times of uncertainty and times of conflicting options. The chapter in this book starts off with a really great story about a time in Hackney, London in 2002, when a man was becoming increasingly annoyed as his pride and joy Saab 900 Turbo was vandalized time and again. Eventually, he demanded from the police, "What are you going to do about it?" And the constable replied, "What are you going to do about it?" And Teenage Kicks was born. It was a 5-a-side football tournament for disaffected youth. The purpose of Teenage Kicks was simple yet powerful: to turn gangs into teams. In a community suffering from no jobs and nothing to do, the idea was to create a structure of meaning, a sense of purpose, of belonging, team, and most importantly, of personal responsibility. The organisers took care of the venue, the referees, the stewards, and the schedule, and then set about handing over responsibility. They first sought out the alpha males, the ones with natural leadership abilities, and made them managers. It was then up to them to find the captain of the team. And it was handed over again. The captain's responsibility was to find the players for the team. The team's responsibility was to turn up for the game on time. If they didn't, the team was disqualified. Now, perhaps 12 teams were expected to turn up. 52 teams arrived on time, and not one team was disqualified during the 4 weeks tournament. Of the many references in this chapter, another stood out that I wanted to share with you. In the military, the command and control is a phrase where instructions and messages are run up and down the chain of command. Can you flick the slide over that? Thank you. Chain of command during a battle in which soldiers are just on the ground, are just pawns. a guy, General Martin E. Dempsey, who was the Joint Chiefs of Staff, wrote a white paper and laid out for the future of military command. He called it mission control to replace command and control. He stated that leaders must empower individual initiative by providing clear, concise, and complete mission orders in a climate of complete trust and understanding. The mission command model requires 1, a clearly defined goal, 2, the resources, and 3, the time frame. Clear understanding of the leader's intention and the right training are key to the implementation of mission command. As you heard many times before, the favorite quote here at Bradbury, Mike Tyson said that everyone has a plan until I punch him in the face. Mission command is for a world in which everything that can go wrong will go wrong. So for you, what can you take away from this that you can now apply in your business? Moving on to principle number 5. Learn. Leaders are teachers. It's important that leaders learn and pass on the learning. 2 Saturdays ago, it seems like a lifetime. And I suppose it was, because 2.5 weeks ago is very different to today right now. On a Saturday morning, Dan gave me a call. This new environment that we're all experiencing now, was only starting to take shape then. This principle that we're going to share now played out before me. Dan had spent Friday on the phone to as many of the mentors, friends, leaders in our industry, anyone that he seeks counsel from, to gain as many perspectives from them as he could to form a balanced thought process, which he then shared with me. In that phone call, it dawned on me that something that I thought I knew, that massive change that I was thinking was going to happen and could be coming, was about to become real. Not about to, just had become real. In that moment, as I sat there with the phone to my ear, like I had on many occasions, it felt the same in that moment. But I knew it wasn't going to be. But I also felt extremely grateful that Dan had reached out to learn as much as he could, and then shared that with me so that we could strategize the way forward for our business. In the book Drive by Daniel Pinkman, he lists 3 factors that Gavin just referred to that he believes creates motivation in a human being: mastery, autonomy, and purpose. Purpose is a connection to core identity of the team shared by Gavin, principle number 3. Autonomy is the dual leadership mission command just shared, and mastery is the subject of this principle. The key questions to achieve mastery are: how do leaders create an environment that allows the opportunity for personal growth and professional development? How do they enable mastery? And how do they make it happen every day? So if any of you that are writing those down, how do leaders create an environment that allows the opportunity for personal growth and professional development? How do they enable mastery? And how do they make it happen every day? I think that making sure that you're a member of a learning environment that Dan Bradbury creates is paramount to that, especially in times like now, when each day seems like we're living a historical moment that will be told, talked about, and taught in the future. I just hope that collectively that we do ourselves proud, that when we are spoken about in the future, that how we behave now, how we show up, how we get through this, how we do this particular time is we're successful in it, and it's spoken about in a positive way. The McLaren F1 team, the Dave Brailsford Olympic cycling team, the Clive Woodward book winning, all refer to marginal gains. And this could be described as 100 things done 1% better to deliver cumulative competitive advantage. Marginal gain can be a technical, physical, operational, and even psychological. If any of you have seen the film Any Given Sunday, starring Al Pacino, in his famous team talk, he explains that marginal gains are inches given or lost on an American football field, and the inches is the difference between winning and losing. Successful leaders look beyond their own field to discover new approaches, learn best practices, and push the margins, then pass on what they have learned. It's important that the leader creates a learning environment in order to be able to take a step back and observe, look at the areas of success and improvement, include the team and those with more expertise than a leader in given areas to improve and change and develop to improve either in normal time and indeed in these extraordinary times. So from the Maori, quoted in a book, the first stage of learning is silence, and the second stage is listening. So moving on to the third principle, principle 9, pressure. Keep a blue head. So I remember in 1996 watching the final round of the Masters golf tournament with my dad, hoping for a Nick Faldo win. Nick Faldo was a British English golfer. And Greg Norman, the Australian, had a 6-shot lead. And I haven't researched this, but I think he might have been world number 1 at the time. Well, didn't hold out much hope, to be honest. 6 shots behind was a huge amount. But as we watched the golf that evening, Greg Norman just fell apart. He's just making uncharacteristic mistakes. And the ball bouncing at funny angles or dropping just short of its target area with huge consequences. Or he was missing putts from hardly any distance. I've also seen footballers walk from the halfway line when I'm watching on television. And the match has ended, extra time has ended, it's now a penalty shootout. Like you, I've seen the footballers walk from the halfway line to the penalty spot in the penalty shootout, and I know from their body language that they're going to miss. I was playing golf a few weeks ago in a match, and there was 4 of us, and I was in a match against one other, and there was a match being played in the same group. I just watched this guy fall apart over 5 holes. He was in the match, he was competing, and then I don't know what the moment was, but he certainly went redhead. He lost control of his thoughts. And it was obvious in his body language and also his verbal language, because he was beating himself up, putting himself down. And then I was watching his swing, and he had a completely different swing shape to what he'd had before. The ball was doing all kinds of different things. So how do we maintain a blue head when under pressure? Either to hit a deadline or make the kick in a Rugby World Cup final. It's easier said than done. But in the heat of battle, the inhibitors of red and the freedom of blue is the manner in which we control our attention. It works like this. Where we direct our mind is where our thoughts will take us. Our thoughts create an emotion. The emotion defines our behavior, and our behavior defines our performance. So in coaching, I've used a metaphor that I wrote for a magazine that we used to publish several years ago. I called it the traffic lights. And this metaphor was about being in a car, and you have to be, let's say, for example, you have to be at a train station to catch a train. You get in the car a little bit late for the time of the journey. As you're driving in the car, on the way towards the train station, every light you come across turns red. The frustration, the annoyance. Even when you get through the red light and you get through green, you go to another light, all of a sudden, there'll be some roadworks. New traffic lights 4 have sprung up and they've just turned red. You get past these traffic lights and then you see a clear road. You think, right, I can put my foot down a bit and make some time up here. And in this particular example, in this metaphor, the road is reaching the brow of a hill, so you can't see over the other side. And just as you're starting to accelerate, so a car pulls out in front of you from the left, and it makes a turn directly in front of you. And there's a really old woman driving the car, and she's doing no more than 20 miles an hour. And you can't overtake her because you can't see what's beyond. So in that moment, you catch yourself and you realize that how tightly you're gripping the steering wheel. You can see the whites of your knuckles. You realize how your breathing is in your throat. And you realize how you're leaning forward from the seat. And you can feel the perspiration in your back. And how tense you are. And what messages you're running in your brain as you're believing you're going to miss the train, and what you're going to say to people, and how you're going to make the excuse, and what's it going to be like when you're not there on time. So the first start of change, because actually, as all of you listening know, that whole world outside is just a reflection of what's happening inside you. So the first thing we do is we just release the grip on the steering wheel and let the whites of our knuckles go. We move the breathing from our throat down into our stomach. So we breathe deeper and longer, and we sit back in the chair. As that happens, the car in front takes the next turning left, leaving the way clear. You approach the next set of traffic lights. They turn green. As you approach a busy roundabout, thinking, I'm never going to get through there, it's like a passing of the cars. They just move out of your way, and you're just guided through. You get to the train station, you think, I can't believe it, I've made up some time, but I've got here just as the train's about to arrive. You park the car, go into the platform, and find out that the train was running 5 minutes late. You made it. You got to the place on time. Just controlling yourself affects how everything else around you happens. So we need to control our attention. And the final slide comes from the Maori. Can you flip the slide over, Gav? From listening comes knowledge. From knowledge comes understanding. From understanding comes wisdom. And from wisdom comes well-being. So I'm going to pass you back to Gav now. And we've got legacy.
Okay, thanks for that, Kev. Some great stuff there. So legacy, we're going to have legacy is normally quite a strategic approach. So, let's look at it this way. Just imagine if you were 80 years old, right? Someone's reading something about you and your achievements during that time. What is it that you want them to be saying about you, right? So, how you lived the life, how you gave back to other people, what business was like, were you a family person, legacy is all about, what is it that you want people to remember you for? And so what we're going to try and do with this next little exercise is focus on what you're going to do over the course of the next 3 months. The next 3 months. So what we want to do is a quick little task. We want you to write down some thoughts on a piece of paper, ideally straight after this session. Just write down some simple things around what will you achieve. If you have that future focus, what will you achieve over the next 3 months? Some of the key things you're going to do. What will you be known for when we come through this challenging time? What What would your customers be saying about you? What would other SMM members be saying about you? I mean, what would your family be saying about you as well in terms of the approach that you've been taking? And yeah, what would your customers be saying about the service that you provided them with? During these testing times, what would you like them to be saying? How you've shown up with them and the service that you provided them with? So just jot some thoughts down on a piece of paper. Do it after you've listened to this session today. And we'd like you to bring those thoughts with you the next session that we have. And it'd be great to get a few shares from a few people to see if you made those things happen. Yeah. So think about it now. Jot some thoughts down. Write on a piece of paper. Be prepared to bring it to the next session that we do. Okay.
So I think we can share, Gav, can't we? That originally we were going to, when it was going to be in the room, we were going to give you a piece of paper, an envelope, and ask you to write the answers to these questions on a sheet of paper, pop it in an envelope, and then bring it back with you at the next SMN, which we hope will be in June, and for you to share it then. So that's what we're really asking for, isn't it, Gav?
Yeah, and that was the original plan. And so just to try and see if we can look at a bit of a workaround for that, that's what we want you to put some stuff down on a piece of paper, answer those few questions there, and then yeah, bring it with you to the next session that we do. Okay. Now I've just realised that there's a couple of questions that Kev's going to put to you, and I realised that in this little next slide, rather than me put questions in, I've just put insert questions here. So Kev, why don't you share the approach that you want to take with this and what this little piece is all about?
Yeah, so I said to you all at the start of the session today that it would be interactive at the start. You would have your input, and this is that area now. So first of all, with Gavin's letter, and then secondly, I would like to ask two questions. The first question is: of the 9 principles that you heard about in detail, which of those principles do you feel that you're currently strongest at? So, of the 9 principles that you've heard about today from the 3 of us, which of those principles do you feel you are currently the strongest at? And then the second question is, of the remaining 8 principles, which do you feel you need to pay the most attention to in the coming quarter? I know at this moment a quarter feels like a heck of a long time because life is changing so rapidly at the moment. Hour by hour, day by day, it's changing so much. But in the next quarter, as you're navigating through this time with your business, with your team, with your people, which of those 8 remaining principles do you feel you need to pay the most attention to? Now, what I would love is for when you've written those down, you've come to your conclusions, is that you share those on the Mastermind Facebook page. I have 5 copies of the book Legacy to send out. So as those responses come in, between the 3 of us, we'll choose the one that we feel, the 5 that we feel have had the most impact, the most thought through, have had the most given to them. The ones that really like give us the feedback and let us know how you've used this session. And then we will choose those top 5 and we'll send out 5 books to our top 5 that you send in.
Okay, great stuff. Thanks for that, Kevin. Then we're just going to finish up with one final little challenge for you, a bit of a fun thing. So I'll just hand this one over to Steve to do for us.
Yeah, thanks, Gav and Kev. Just before I do this final piece, just while we've been on this call, I actually got a ping through from one of my WhatsApp groups, and it's a rugby one, believe it or not. And there's a little sort of poster that's come with it, which is rugby life lessons, which I think is just, I know we're all talking about rugby at the moment, but this is These are just 10 things that they come up from rugby and how it kind of morphs into life, and really pertinent at this point. So I'm just going to read these 10 very quickly. So the first one: sometimes you've got to play through the pain. 2, have patience. The opportunities will come. Very, very relevant right now. Sometimes the best things in life are least understood. Again, very relevant. Brace yourself. Expect people to take cheap shots. Happens quite a bit in rugby. Show respect for those in authority. Success is often determined by your last second decisions. It's not enough to just reach your goal, you have to surpass it. The real world doesn't include padding, and don't we know it? Satisfaction comes from making and taking the big hits, and success comes from playing with passion. I think more or less all of those 10 you could just relay into this particular situation we find ourselves in right now. And it's in line with what happens in a rugby game as well. So all very relevant as we do this right now. Perhaps the ether is listening to everything that we're doing and ping stuff up. Anyway, so what we were going to do when we were all together was that I was going to try and teach you a little bit of the haka. And then we were all going to stand there and we were going to do it, and then we were going to make up our own one at some stage. Now, the reason for that is that another part in the book, it talks about the haka, and it talks about this connectedness and the bit about everyone being together. And it came out from the team that, you know what, this haka doesn't really mean much to me. So as a group of players, whoever the 15 or the 23 or the 30, the squad of players were together, they would make up their own haka. And if you go and have a look on YouTube anywhere, you'll find a number of different hackers. So the ladies' sevens hacker will be different to the ladies' 15 hacker, which is different to the men's 15 hacker, which is different to the men's sevens hacker. And sevens just the amount of players they play on a full-size pitch. Yes, can you imagine 7 players on a side on a full-size pitch? Is absolutely tiring, but it's only 7 minutes each way. But it's all different. And if you look at one from 2015 at the World Cup, it's very different to the one that Gav showed earlier. So what we want you to do is we want you to record a bit of haka. We want you to do your very best one. You can either make it up yourself or you can try and reenact another one. Don't worry, some of them are only about 50 seconds to a minute on YouTube. So make up your one, post it on the mastermind group, and we'll have a bit of fun with it. And you get to keep for a quarter the very fine rugby shirt which we had made up. There it is. It's the Dan Bradbury all white shirt. The reason it's all white is that at the SMM we were going to get all of you to sign it, and then we would be presenting it to somebody who I thought had done the best haka whilst we were doing it. We would present that to you, and then you would have to bring that shirt back, as the whole thing about legacy is, give the shirt back in a better place than when you got it. And then you, after a quarter, would have to tell us what had gone on in your business and how it's better than it was the previous quarter.